YouTube live as well. Good afternoon, Ben. How's it going, my man? Thanks for tuning in. Hope we're having a good Wednesday so far. I am pumped to be live right now because I am locked in. I am locked in at the current moment on Underdog Fantasy. Take a look at this draft that I recently did. This team is potentially going to win me $1 million. I'm doing a live draft right now on YouTube as well. We are live on TikTok, and we are live on YouTube. How's it going, everyone that's watching live on YouTube? If you are, what is up, Noel? Noel, sorry. If you can't hear me, Noel, let me know. Make sure the mic is working properly. Massholes represent, that's what I'm talking about. Who should I pick at 12 and 13? I'm doing a live draft on YouTube right now. And in the draft that I'm doing right now, at 12 went Tyreek Hill, and at 13 we saw Nick Chubb go. I think I would prefer Austin Eckler, Cam Akers if they are available, but they usually aren't in recent drafts. What is up, Walter? My name is Sam. It's a classic mistake, though. Don't worry about it. Walter's the artificially intelligent algorithm that I helped build that helps us dominate fantasy sports and player props and daily fantasy sports. And I'm doing a live draft on Underdog right now. I had the first overall pick in the draft, and I got my guy, Christian McCaffrey, who is the obvious first overall pick this season. And I'm following this up, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I'm getting in the beginning of, or the end of the second round. And in the third round, I think this move might surprise people. I'm not going to draft Michael Thomas. I'm not going to draft A.J. Brown. I'm actually going to take DeAndre Swift. And I'm starting with 3 straight running backs in this draft. You're watching live on YouTube. Check this out. I have been really opening up, guys. I have been really opening up to DeAndre Swift in the third round. And I was doubting him. I'm not going to lie. I had been doubting him. I had been doubting this man right here, DeAndre Swift. But I have come across new information. I've come across new information that I want to share with you all. DeAndre Swift, guys, even if the Lions are awful, and this was the main reason I had been fading DeAndre Swift. There was 2 main reasons. Luck won, less monster. Yes, there was 2 main reasons I was fading DeAndre Swift for the first 100 drafts-ish that I was doing. Well, there's actually 3 main reasons. 1, the Lions might be the worst team in the NFL offensively. Their wide receiver depth chart's an absolute joke. It is by far and away. I think it's the bottom 3 offensive line I've seen in my lifetime. I think the Bears had a really bad one a few years ago. But they might not score any points. That's how bad the offense is. That was the first big reason. Second big reason was they signed Jamal Williams. And all offseason so far, they've been shouting from the rooftops they want this to be a hot hand approach in the backfield. We're going to do a hot hand approach with Jamal Williams. Jamal Williams is going to get at least 40% of the carries for the Lions. The third big reason I was fading him was the price. And price is everything in fantasy football. Everything. This is a game of opportunity cost. And DeAndre Swift, in the last 2 months, has been going in the second round. But as the Jamal Williams hype has come, so has DeAndre Swift's price began to drop. And now you are getting DeAndre Swift, a very talented second-year running back, fully healthy, behind by far the best offensive line he's ever played behind, a potentially top 10 offensive line in the NFL on a team that has no receivers. He's going to have 5+ targets a game. So in half PPR and in PPR leagues, behind a very good offensive line, DeAndre Swift if he just gets the red zone role, and if he can make and establish his role as a receiver in the offense, he could legitimately be a top 10 running back in fantasy football, even if the Lions suck. Even if Jamal Williams gets 40% of the carries. It is still within his range of outcomes to finish as a top 10 running back. This is why I'm drafting DeAndre Swift now in the third round. I have talked myself into DeAndre Swift in the third round. They're going to throw it anyway. They're going to have to throw the ball. They're going to get destroyed every single game. The Lions literally might not win a game. But the clear strength of the Lions team is DeAndre Swift. And if you guys want to watch this draft live with me on YouTube, you can. I'm showing the draft board right now. I went 3 straight running backs in this draft. I'm trying to win $1 million with this draft. I'm going to be maxing out in Best Ball Mania 2 on Underdog Fantasy. If you haven't signed up for Underdog Fantasy yet, you got to sign up. Use code Walter when you sign up. You'll get a free $25 match when you sign up. So if you deposit $25 on Underdog for the first time and you use code Walter, you get another free $25. That's like you get one entry into a $1 million contest, but then you get another free entry just for using the code Walter. So definitely try that out. I'm doing a live draft on YouTube right now as well, so you can see the picks as they are happening. And I will not pick another running back in this draft now. I just went 3 straight running backs. I can ignore the position for the rest of the draft, which is great because basically all the running backs left at this point, if you're watching live on YouTube, check this out. Basically all of the running backs left. Look at the running backs left. I would estimate at least 60% of these running backs that are left are going to be complete busts. Take a look at this. Mike Davis, he is bust city. This guy has at least a 50-50 shot at being a complete bust. He's 28 years old, a journeyman in the NFL. He has very little competition. He should see good volume, but will anyone be surprised if Mike Davis is no longer the starter in Week 5? I definitely won't be. We have Myles Gaskin. Will he even be in the red zone? They have Malcolm Brown and Ahmed and Lynn Bowden. Myles Gaskin's going to be the guy getting the ball between the 20s. I don't know if that's going to be a very fruitful fantasy role. Javonte Williams, he certainly has upside, but Melvin Gordon's still there. This is what we call the running back dead zone. This is round 4 to round 6. The running backs seem like they should get volume, but I'm not so convinced. And so I went 3 straight running backs in this draft. I won't draft another one. I won't draft another one in this entire draft. I got Christian McCaffrey first overall. I got Clyde Edwards-Helaire at the end of the second round, and DeAndre Swift for the first pick of the third round. And now I'm about to be back on the clock, and we are about to absolutely hammer wide receivers now, because wide receivers are the most important position in this format. So I'm definitely taking 2 straight wide receivers here, one of which I'll sign me up for Tyler Lockett in the Best Ball League. I just need a few 40-point weeks out of Tyler Lockett. And with my second pick here, I want to go with Cooper Kupp. I'm going to go with Cooper Kupp. I haven't drafted him very frequently, but with Matthew Stafford, there's definitely some upside there. I'm liking how the team's coming together so far. I'll get to some of your questions now. The nice thing about the first overall pick is there's some solid wait time between picks. If you do want to watch this draft live, we are live on YouTube. Just look up WalterPicks. I'll get to some of the questions now on YouTube and on TikTok. How are we doing, everyone? Top 5 wide receivers. Top 5 wide receivers is a good one. CH is a good pick. Back into the second round, beginning of the third round, guys, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is a good pick. I got Julio in the 6th round in a 10-person league. Is that an absolute steal? HQ guest, how's it going, my man? It is a pretty fair value, I would say. Yo, Sam, what is good? What is good, guys? Lions have a top 15 offensive line. What do you mean? Yeah, they do. They arguably have a top 10 offensive line. It is significantly better than what they had last season. Yeah, wide receiver core next. Yeah, at least the next 2 picks. We should make a follower/subscriber fantasy league with you rated. We're definitely doing this. We are doing this as we get closer to the season. Where should Miles Sanders go? This is a good question. If you're looking at the draft live on YouTube right now, we are seeing Miles Sanders go in the 3rd round, 3rd or 4th round. The big concern with Miles Sanders, guys, is that Jordan Howard is there. They drafted Gainwell. And there's a chance that he does not get consistent volume. This has always been the concern with Miles Sanders. It's not the talent. The talent is there. But the upside for Miles Sanders, I feel like, actually is going a little overlooked this offseason. Last season, he was very overhyped. This season, he feels a little underhyped to me because Miles Sanders did better with Jalen Hurts last year. All right, top 5 wide receivers. I'll get to this question. Right now, whoa, take a look at this draft board, by the way. Devontae Adams went 2nd overall in this draft. That must have been a mistake. But I think my top 5 wide receivers, number 1 for me right now has to be Tyreek Hill. He's tethered to the best quarterback in the league, and he has been completely unstoppable. You either double Tyreek Hill or he absolutely torches you. Those are your 2 options. I'd say Tyreek Hill's number 1. Stephon Diggs is probably number 2. But my number 3 guy, which is DeAndre Hopkins, I would argue is the safest wide receiver in all of fantasy football. These are fantasy football rankings, by the way. I would argue that DeAndre Hopkins is the safest receiver in all of fantasy football. And the reason for that is he's had 3 straight seasons with over 150 targets. There's no other receiver that does that. When DeAndre Hopkins goes to a new team with no offseason, and in the first game he's getting like 12-plus targets. It's insane. That's how dominant DeAndre Hopkins is. And that's why, to me, he's the safest receiver in all of fantasy, especially in PPR leagues. After DeAndre Hopkins, though, It's Calvin Ridley. Guys, Calvin Ridley is easily a top 4 wide receiver at this point in fantasy. And I think at number 5 is probably still Devontae Adams. If Aaron Rodgers plays, Devontae Adams is number 1. To me, if Aaron Rodgers doesn't play, he's more like number 5. Who's the new Ridley or Godwin this year? Yes, this is a fantastic question. There's 2 guys that I see being the Calvin Ridley this year. One of them is CeeDee Lamb. This one seems a little more obvious than my second choice. CeeDee Lamb, we all know how good of a prospect he is. He did very well last season, even without Dak Prescott. He balled out with Dak Prescott in the first 5 games of the season. I went back and actually rewatched those first 5 games with a healthy Dak Prescott for the Cowboys last season pretty recently. And CeeDee Lamb's going to ball out this season, guys. He has a Calvin Ridley season in him. But the second guy is a little overlooked, in my opinion, and it is a rookie. And it is Devonta Smith, guys. Devonta Smith, he's on a team with very little competition for targets. The big concern with the Eagles is that they're going to be very run-heavy with Jalen Hurts. But Devonta Smith, guys, is very, very good at every single attribute you want in a receiver except for height. The only thing you can knock Devonta Smith for is height. But every other thing, route running, speed, hands, he has all of it. And you're not going to be able to single cover Devonta Smith in the NFL. And he's going to ball out as soon as week 1 for the Eagles. I could see a Calvin Ridley level season out of him too. Hey Sam, can you rank these? Should I draft Josh Gordon this year? Only with your last overall pick. Your last overall pick to me is more about you as a person and less about you as your fantasy team. So if you want the Josh Gordon vibes on your team, go for it, man. But only with your last pick. Hi Sam, can you rank these 4 players? Justin Jefferson, Michael Thomas, Keenan Allen, Allen Robinson. I would say that in terms of average draft position, I'm pretty sure it goes Justin Jefferson, then Keenan Allen, then Michael Thomas, then Allen Robinson. I don't know if I would rank them that way, though. I think Michael Thomas, honestly, is the safest guy on that list because Michael Thomas has legitimately locked in for 140 targets, and he could easily see more than that. I'm back on the clock here. I'll finish answering the question in a second. Let's see what wide receivers are available. We just saw Devonta Smith get snagged right before me. Someone's probably listening to this stream. Courtland Sutton is a guy that I just see myself getting more and more of in fantasy drafts too. This is end of 6th round. Courtland Sutton is likely going to lead the Broncos in targets this season, even if Jerry Jeudy has a good season, which he could have a good season. Sutton is good, and he's already fully healthy and already up to full speed. And Chase Claypool, to me, I'll gladly take him here as well. I think Chase Claypool has the highest upside of any Steelers wide receiver. Back to the rankings of those players, though, I think I would say that I would rank Michael Thomas first, then Justin Jefferson, then Keenan Allen, then Allen Robinson. But the big concern for Allen Robinson for me, there's kind of a pro and a con. One, it's Justin Fields or Andy Dalton is the best quarterback he's ever played with. But on the flip side of that is usually rookie quarterbacks struggle to sustain high-level fantasy producers around them. There's been a lot of studies on this. Usually it's hard to have more than one legit fantasy producer tethered to a rookie quarterback in terms of their receiving weapons. So I think Allen Robinson could be fine, and I see there is a realistic argument that Justin Fields is the best quarterback he's ever played with, and he actually has his best season of his career. But there's also this flip side of if Darnell Mooney ascends, it's going to be hard for both of them to have legitimate wide receiver 1 upside every single week. Akers or J.K. Dobbins? Definitely Akers. It's not even close. Cam Akers is a first-round pick, guys, in fantasy this season, and rightfully so. If you look at the playoffs last season, that's really all you need to see. Look at the playoffs last season and look at what Sean McVay has said since the playoffs last season. Cam Akers was getting the ball almost 30 times a game. They let Malcolm Brown leave in the offseason, which is, to me, was a very, very telling sign. There's two times teams tell you what they're thinking in the NFL. It is in free agency and it is in the NFL draft. And what did the Rams do in free agency? They let one of their 3 rotation running backs leave. And then all offseason, hyped up Cam Akers saying he is going to be their workhorse back. We have not seen them do this since Todd Gurley. He has a Todd Gurley level season upside. That is Cam Akers' upside, which is why he's going in the first round. And it's why with the 12th overall pick, if I have the 12th overall pick, Cam Akers is not getting past me. He's not getting past me if I have the 12th overall pick. Who's the late round QB pick in 2021? Mahomes in 2018, Lamar in 2019, Josh Allen in 2020. Who now? Jack, I love how you phrase this question. I was all in on Lamar in 2019. I was not all over Josh Allen in 2020. I was not all over Mahomes in 2018. But who I believe has the best chance to become one of those guys this season, it's Trey Lance. It has to be Trey Lance because Trey Lance has the weapons around him. All he needs to do is just win the starting job. And the 49ers want him to win the starting job, guys. They were trying to trade Jimmy G. So the sooner that happens, the more likely it becomes that Trey Lance is this year's Josh Allen, is this year's Lamar Jackson, is this year's Patrick Mahomes. Because Trey Lance will have that unparalleled rushing upside. It's 99th percentile speed at the quarterback position. But he also doesn't need to be off the charts as a passer. He has Deebo Samuel, Ayuka the Bazooka, and George Kittle. Like 3 of the best yards after the catch players, period, in the NFL. So I think Trey Lance has a lot of exciting upside. He just needs to win the starting role. And there's a chance he doesn't for like a while. There's definitely that chance. But on the off chance he wins it, and he wins it like early in the season, he's going to win fantasy leagues. Thoughts on Najee Harris? Late second round or third? Yeah, late second round. Late second round for Najee Harris all day. I think in the draft I'm doing right now, he went in the early second round. 14th overall pick he went in this draft. I think that's a little bit early. And honestly, I think I like the value of Clyde Edwards-Helaire at the end of the second round as opposed to Najee Harris in the beginning of the second round. I think this is why the second and third rounds are really the reason why I like the early picks this year. Because to me, there's not that big of a difference other than the level of team they're on and the level of offensive line they have between Najee Harris and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But Najee Harris has a legitimate chance to get over 300 carries. Over 300 carries. I think the Steelers' offense, someone asked, are the Steelers going to have a better or worse season? This is a really good question. The Steelers were doing really well last year, specifically defensively, and then they had the worst COVID schedule changes that we saw last season. They were the most impacted schedule-wise from COVID last year. This is the Pittsburgh Steelers we're talking about. But their defense also balled out last year, and I'm not sure they're going to be able to sustain that level of defense. Defense is one of the most volatile things from year to year. I'm back on the clock here. I'm going to take Dallas Goedert. I don't have a tight end yet, and I'd like to only draft 2 tight ends. Dallas Goedert should give me that flexibility later in the draft. So I'm going to queue him up, but I want to use all the time I can here because I have not been watching closely at the players available. Michael Pittman is still available. Let's look at the tight ends and quarterbacks here. Honestly, I think I might go double tight end. Yeah, so I got Dallas Goedert. I'm going to go Logan Thomas. And this way I do not need to draft another tight end in this draft. So now I'm done drafting. If you take a look at, I like to think about, I'm doing an underdog best ball draft right now. If you haven't used underdog, by the way, you got to try it out. And when you do try it out, use code Walter because you get a free $25. Or free $25 if you just use the code Walter when you sign up. If you deposit $25, they'll give you a free $25. Now you got $50 to start practicing your best ball drafts. And you can draft for as little as $3. Or you can do this draft that I'm doing now, which is a $25 entry fee. Take a look at this team I built earlier today in this format as well. Take a look at this team. I think this team is a legit shot to win me $1 million, which is what I'm competing for. In the first place prize in this tournament, $1 million for this best ball league. But I like to think about position by position as I build my roster. Roster construction is everything with these leagues. I like to think about, can I legitimately win this position in this league? I only drafted 2 tight ends. I legitimately believe I have a chance to win the tight end position, though. Because, look, no one else has 2 tight ends yet. So I was the first person to 2 tight ends in this league. The first person to 2 tight ends. I'll switch back to the draft board here. I was the first person to 2 tight ends in this league. And that, to me, gives me a chance at number 1 tight end scoring. Again, I don't make start-sit decisions in this format, so the best tight end is just going to be played for me between Dallas Goedert and Logan Thomas. Logan Thomas, by the way, Dallas Goedert, Tyler Higbee, this is like the end of tight ends I want anything to do with. The drop-off on tight ends, as usual, is astronomical. Like, I do not want anything to do with anyone that's getting drafted after there. So now I'm done drafting tight ends. I also started this draft with 3 straight running backs, so I'm not drafting another running back, and I drafted Christian McCaffrey. I have a legit shot to win running back scoring with only 3 running backs in this league if Christian McCaffrey can stay healthy for the whole season. So now I just need 2 or 3 quarterbacks, and then the rest of my team, I'm going to be building off this solid wide receiver group I've already started to build with 4 wide receivers. I'm really liking how this squad's coming together. Cortland Sutton or Henry Ruggs? Come on, it's definitely Cortland Sutton. The Cortland Sutton hit has gotten too far. I drafted Cortland Sutton in this draft I'm doing live right now on YouTube, by the way. Look up WalterPicks on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube as well. We're trying to hit 10,000 YouTube subscribers this NFL season. I think we're going to be able to do it. We're starting at about 2,000. So it's a pretty lofty goal, but I think we can do it if you guys hit that subscribe button. But we are getting too salty on Cortland Sutton, guys. He was injured. Before he was injured, he already had a 1,000-yard season. He has Jerry Jeudy alongside of him now. I don't think that's the end of the world. He's on a run-first team, which isn't great. But he also should be playing with Teddy Bridgewater, which is an upgrade over Drew Lock. Drew Lock is not good. Would you draft Mike Gesicki? No, I want nothing to do with Mike Gesicki. Yo, can you finish what you were saying about the Steelers season? Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I get very sidetracked sometimes, but especially as I'm drafting and answering questions. But I will finish my thought on the Steelers. I think that the Steelers, I was saying that their season got derailed, right? They had these horrible schedule changes, which really did not help them. They were undefeated, I think, potentially the longest, if I remember correctly, in the NFL. Last season, 8-0, maybe it was 12-0 or something like that. But they had that brutal loss to the Bengals. That was, I think that was on primetime television, maybe Monday night. But I'm, again, getting sidetracked. The point here is the Steelers' defense overperformed last season. I don't think they're going to be quite as good. But the offense, I think that the offense almost has to be better. They led the league in drops, or were top 3 in the league in drops. Their offensive line was really, really bad last season. Like bottom 5 in the league bad. And I also don't expect that to be the case again. Because it's just hard to be bottom 5 in the league in something 2 years in a row. Even though they did lose their center this offseason who went to the Chargers, they got a different center. I think that with health on the offensive line and the wide receivers that they have and Najee Harris, they almost have to be better on offense. So I think they're going to be pretty comparable to last season. I think their defense will be worse, but their offense will be better. Do I think all 3 wide receivers, though, are going to end up being fantasy relevant in values at where their average draft position is? No, probably not. I think Chase Claypool has the highest upside because he's the youngest and he has the most touchdown upside. I think Deontay Johnson, though, for everyone that followed me last season, I am a Deontay Johnson stan. I do think he is the clear number 1 wide receiver on the team. And they've been talking about playing Juju more on the outside recently, which is confusing to me because who's going to play on the inside? Chase Claypool and Deontay Johnson are fantastic out wide receivers. So I'm a little confused about that Juju report that we saw not that long ago. I'm back on the clock here. I'm definitely going to take Trey Lance with one of these picks because, again, like I was saying earlier, if there's any quarterback that's going to be the Josh Allen of last season or the Lamar Jackson of the season before, it is Trey Lance. He just needs to win the starting quarterback role, and he's going to win fantasy leagues. And he potentially on this team is going to win me $1 million. Now I'm going to look back at the wide receivers here and see what we're looking at. Looks like Russell Gage is already gone. It looks like Darnell Mooney has already been picked. There's not that much here. But I'm going to go with Elijah Moore. I'm going to continue to confidently draft Elijah Moore. I think Elijah Moore is a lot better than what people realize. And I feel like the entire Jets team, and this feels weird to say, my friends are saying Taylor greater than Akers, but I disagree. I don't think you're crazy to disagree, but the vast majority of people would disagree. Most people would say Jonathan Taylor is better than Cam Akers, and I think he is better, but he has more competition. This is the thing for me. But guys, the Jets are overall being slept on because of this guy right here. If you're watching live on TikTok, the Adam Gase effect is coming. The Adam Gase is coming, and it's coming to a New York Jets football team near you. Sam, you play on FanDuel or DraftKings? Tucker, what's going on, my man? I tend to play on DraftKings more than FanDuel. I honestly don't have a strong reason why. Like, I have a strong reason why I like Yahoo more than ESPN, because ESPN literally has not changed their platform in like 10 years, while Yahoo has improved slightly. Sleeper is still the best kind of season-long fantasy platform, in my opinion. But in terms of the FanDuel and DraftKings, to me, are like the exact same thing. The one thing that bugs me about FanDuel is they don't have best ball yet. While every other platform is already doing best ball drafts, FanDuel actually acquired a best ball company 2 years ago for like millions of dollars. Yet they're months behind all these other platforms in just having drafts getting started. So I lean towards DraftKings, but to me they're like basically the exact same thing. This was a mock draft. Oh, Andrew, you sent a team. Nice. Rate this draft. Hill, Akers, Carson, Cooper, Hawkins, and Mike Davis. Yeah, I don't love those running backs in the middle. Mike Davis, Robinson, Fournette, Damian Harris. This is the running back dead zone. And I like Damian Harris probably more than all of those guys at cost.
But I think the middle rounds for wide receivers, that's where you should be hammering wide receivers. Rounds 4, 5, 6, 7, this is the wide receiver rounds. Get at least 2 running backs in the first 3 rounds because there's just such a big drop-off. Chubb has the highest break tackle percentage in the league. Yes, Christian. Nick Chubb, you could argue, is the most talented running back in the NFL. There's a legitimate argument for this. He does benefit from splitting work with Kareem Hunt, right? He gets to stay a little bit more fresh, but regardless, nobody's breaking tackles at a higher rate than Nick Chubb. Nobody is also seeing stacked boxes at a higher rate than Nick Chubb. So not only does the defense know that Nick Chubb is getting the ball and he's going to get, it's going to be a running play, there's more defenders in the box than any other running back in the NFL, but he still is averaging one of the highest yards per carries in the league. I'm taking Zeke over Barkley. Matt, I've done this several times. Who all did you draft so far? Yes, good question. So if you aren't watching live on YouTube, let's run through my squad so far. I'll pull up the draft board as well. I know that's a little nicer to look at for those of you watching on YouTube. I do appreciate everyone tuned into YouTube. I will get to some of the questions, I promise. But so far, my squad, I had first overall pick, which I absolutely love. I think, honestly, first overall pick is my favorite pick, and it has been for basically the past 5 seasons, it feels like, because Christian McCaffrey is the biggest single advantage you can get in fantasy football, so you have to take the first overall pick. But the other part of the first overall pick, and just the beginning of the first round in general, is I like the second and third rounds in those spots, because at the end of the second round, I got Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I was taking him as a top 5 pick last season. Obviously, that didn't work out. That was not a good pick. He was, more or less a bust last season. It was a very disappointing rookie season for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But all of the same situation is still in place for Clyde. There's no Damian Williams. It's him and Darrell Williams on the best offense in the league, and he's a good receiver. And they lost Sammy Watkins. He could actually grow in his receiving role this year, and now you're getting him at a much, much reduced cost, which makes me like him even more. So I got Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I got Christian McCaffrey, and then the first pick of the third round, I went with DeAndre Swift, who I'm really starting to talk myself into. Because DeAndre Swift, yes, he's sharing work with Jamal Williams. Yes, the Lions are going to be atrocious. They might not win a game. They could finish last in points scored. Those things will not be good for DeAndre Swift, but they also have no receivers. DeAndre Swift or TJ Hawkinson are going to lead this team in targets. And whichever one doesn't is probably going to be number 2 in targets. So in a half PPR league and a PPR league, which is what I'm playing in, I can talk myself into DeAndre Swift in the third round. And the last point about DeAndre Swift is he now has a top 10, maybe top 15, I'd argue top 10 offensive line in the league. So I drafted 3 straight running backs: Christian McCaffrey, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, DeAndre Swift. Then I hammered some wide receivers in these middle rounds that I'm telling you, you got to be hammering wide receivers in these middle rounds. Tyler Lockett, Cooper Kupp, Cortland Sutton, Chase Claypool, all 4 of those guys, while they aren't projected to be their top wide receiver, or they have some competition to being their top wide receiver, I bet you at least one of these 4 receivers ends up leading their team in receiving yards this season. And all of them have a lot of upside given their current situations. Tyler Lockett specifically. Then I got Dallas Goedert and Logan Thomas. And then with my last 2 picks, I got Elijah Moore and Trey Lance, 2 rookies. I'm back on the clock right now, and I'm going to pass on quarterback here. So let's take a look at the wide receivers. I only need wide receivers and quarterbacks, which really simplifies my decision making. I'm going to go with Paris Campbell with my first pick. Guys, Paris Campbell is the most athletic receiver on the Colts. And a lot of people still don't even know who Paris Campbell is, because so far his career has basically just been him taking the field and then immediately getting injured, like every single time. It's infuriating. I'm going to go with Emmanuel Sanders with my next receiver here. The Cole Beasley rant on Twitter about the COVID restrictions, I don't know if you guys have seen this. He was very, very upset about the different rules for the vaccinated versus unvaccinated COVID rules. And I'm not going to get into all of that on this stream, but he also threatened retirement in his rant on Twitter publicly. If he retires, Emmanuel Sanders and I'm blanking on his name right now. He probably isn't picked yet. Let's take a look. Oh, this is going to bug me. This is really going to bug me. It'll come to me later. But Emmanuel Sanders is going to be a value if Cole Beasley doesn't play. But even if Cole Beasley does play, why is Swift behind you, Kyle? Because I just drafted DeAndre Swift, and I'm talking myself into DeAndre Swift in the third round more and more. If you're watching live on TikTok, guys, by the way, we have our draft tool data live in the WalterPicks app right now, and take a look at this. The average draft position. DK Metcalf is getting picked 2 wide receivers before Michael Thomas. But based on our 10,000 simulations of the season, and by the way, if you download the WalterPicks app in the iOS App Store, you'll get access to all of this for completely free. Completely free. And if you subscribe to the app, then you'll get unlimited access to all of this. But what this is giving you, this is giving us the best case scenario for each of these players. Best case scenario for Michael Thomas is that he literally finishes as the best wide receiver in fantasy football. He could get 180 targets with Jameis Winston. DK Metcalf, that's not a bad ceiling, by the way. Wide receiver 2. If he has a monster season with Russell Wilson, definitely possible. I could see both of these things as reasonable. Second, the floor. The worst case scenario, according to our 10,000 simulations of this upcoming season for Michael Thomas, is that he finishes as wide receiver 12. There is only like 5 wide receivers that have a floor that makes them a wide receiver 1. This is almost unheard of. And you're getting Michael Thomas in the 3rd round, which is absolutely insane for this floor. The floor for DK Metcalf, by the way, is much lower. Because DK Metcalf is on a run-first team and has a lot more competition than what Michael Thomas has. So just look at this dichotomy. Absolutely insane. You got to download this app, by the way. I spent almost 10,000 hours of my life at this point building this app. So go check it out, WalterPicks on the iOS App Store. Let me know what you think. But the team so far is coming along very, very nicely. I'm doing a live draft on YouTube so far. I want to talk a little bit about this guy behind me. I saw a very exciting report. I don't know if you all saw this report. If you're watching live on YouTube, I'm talking about Cordero Patterson right now, who, if you've been following me since the beginning of the offseason, you know. Gabriel Davis, Cody, thank you. Gabriel Davis. Gabriel Davis also will benefit massively if Cole Beasley sits. And honestly, Gabriel Davis or Emmanuel Sanders, one of those guys is going to be a massive value, regardless of if Cole Beasley plays or not, because one of them is going to be a starter for the Bills, tethered to Josh Allen. But guys, your last round pick, your last overall pick in all of your fantasy drafts, it's not just about winning your league. This is not what your last round pick is all about. Because in all likelihood, your last round pick is going to do absolutely nothing, and in a traditional season-long league, he's almost definitely going to end up on the waiver wire. It's extremely, extremely rare that your last round pick does anything. And this is my philosophy. Your last round pick, it's got to be more about the vibe you're bringing to the team. And this is the vibe we want to bring to our teams in the last round pick. Cordero Patterson coming to the Atlanta Falcons in the perfect, ideal scenario for him. He's behind Mike Davis, a 28-year-old journeyman running back that for some reason everyone thinks is locked in to a huge volume position. I won't be surprised at all if by week 3 Mike Davis is getting less than 10 touches a game. And after that, the backfield is wide open. Cordero Patterson, the report was he's been exclusively practicing at running back. And this is the exact news we wanted to hear. Avery, how's it going, my man? How's it going? Avery, I could not be more excited. We are getting every day, Avery. We're one day closer to the NFL season, and I absolutely cannot wait. Oh no, I'm gonna get auto drafted. Please don't draft me, Jeff Wilson. Please don't draft me, Jeff Wilson. Oh no, they drafted me, Jeff Wilson. Avery, you distracted me. No, it's okay. This has happened to me so much. Dylan, how's it going, man? We are live on YouTube. We are live on TikTok. Avery, I can't wait to announce officially the 32 TikTok creators that we are bringing to the WalterPicks brand. It's an absolutely kick-ass team that is going to completely change the landscape of NFL content on TikTok. We are bringing one TikTok creator for every single NFL team. When do you draft with the viewers? Good question. Are you excited for Trubisky? No, I'm not that excited for Trubisky. When do you draft with the viewers? We will be doing drafts as we get closer to the NFL season, but my plan moving forward is to be live every single Wednesday night. Every single Wednesday night is the goal. So we will be able to do drafts with you, the viewers, and with the WalterPicks fans every Wednesday. We just need 12 people. And we can do drafts together. Some of them will be mock drafts. Some of them, if people are down, we can do drafts for just $5 on Underdog Fantasy. Those are really fun too. Do you know your live schedule? Because I get confused. Can I turn on notifications when you do? Matt, I got a lot of life updates coming soon, and I think you are confused because I am confused because my schedule has been wild, working full-time as a teacher and also working basically full-time for WalterPicks. So don't worry about the confusion. And there will be a lot more clarity coming very soon. And I'll be on a very consistent schedule. But my general plan is every single Wednesday night. Who's representing the Panthers? You'll know very soon. You'll know very soon who's representing every single team. They're a team of all-stars. I can't wait to start working with them. Hey, I'm back and ready for the season. Nick, that's what I'm talking about. Last season, my last round pick was James Robinson. All right, HQ, yes, you proved me wrong. What subject do you teach? I teach Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and Statistics. Sunday 2, like I always do. Yeah, I'm going to try to do Sundays as well. But again, they've just launched a feature on TikTok where I can actually schedule in advance, which is fantastic. I'm so disappointed that I drafted Jeff Wilson. I got auto-drafted Jeff Wilson in this draft. I did not want another running back. I just hate looking at him there. I can still win, by the way. I can definitely still win with this team. And there's actually a chance Jeff Wilson comes back late in the season. But, man, it's pretty infuriating. And look at the quarterbacks left. I hope I can get Jameis Winston on this team because the quarterbacks after that are looking pretty bad. So we will see what is left. I still got a lot of picks till me. So I bet Jameis Winston is not going to be available. We will see. I did calculus in high school. Yeah, calc is cool. I'd say stats is definitely the coolest. Bro, you have pronouns in your bio. You belong. I don't know what that means. All right, let's get back to some of the questions. If you have questions about your dynasty fantasy teams, about your season-long teams that you're drafting, are you the Patriots rep? Good question. No, I am not. I'm going to be still running the main WalterPicks account. The Patriots rep is going to be independent from me. I will be very opinionated, I think, about the Patriots rep's opinions. I'm going to be very opinionated still in my own opinions. But I will not be the Patriots rep. No, I will be the WalterPicks main account on TikTok. I will basically be covering all teams like I always have been. And everyone, actually, every single one of our creators, which is we're going to have one creator on the WalterPicks brand for every single NFL team. They're all going to have their own TikTok accounts, and they're all going to be creating consistent content on TikTok. But they are not going to be pigeonholed into just their team. They're going to create content about their team, obviously, but they're also going to create content about other stuff. They're going to create content about whatever they want to create content about. What are you saying about Cordero? Yes, thank you, Charlie, for getting me back on track here. Cordero Patterson, guys, he is the ideal last-round pick. Not only is he going to bring fantastic vibes to your entire roster, but he also is fighting for the number 2 running back spot for the Atlanta Falcons, whose starting running back is a 28-year-old journeyman, Mike Davis, who has never popped off the page in terms of talent. He's a very average or slightly above average running back. Let's be real. And it's not going to be that surprising if 28-year-old Mike Davis burns out very quickly for the Atlanta Falcons. And in steps Cordero Patterson, who is solely now practicing at the running back position. My favorite sleeper, honestly, is probably, Jameis Winston didn't get picked. Let's go. We're going to get Jameis Winston on the squad. I like the upside of the quarterbacks I'm drafting in this draft. I'm definitely going to take Zach Wilson also. I'm going to go with 3 quarterbacks here because I drafted Trey Lance, who we don't know when Trey Lance is going to start. And I'm also drafting Jameis Winston, and we do not know how long Jameis Winston is going to start either. This is a very risky, high upside group of quarterbacks. But that's okay, because I'm playing in a tournament that I need to take risks. I'd say my favorite sleeper right now, though, is either Devonta Smith, who's becoming less and less of a sleeper. He's going in the 6th round now. But after that, it's probably Damian Harris, who's going to be running behind the top 5 offensive line. Guys, check this out. These are some futures I made. If you're watching live on TikTok, I'll talk through it. Don't worry if you're watching live on YouTube. These are some futures I made on the PrizePicks app. If you haven't checked out PrizePicks yet, it's a pretty dope app where you can actually make future picks now. And you can parlay the future picks. And one of our locks during the NBA season, we had 55% accuracy on the player props in the WalterPicks app during the NBA season. And one of our locks was Bradley Beal, over 31.5 points. So I parlayed him with these 3 NFL futures. Joe Burrow, over 25.5 touchdowns. This is again, remember, this is a 17-game season, too. I feel like these futures aren't taking into account the 17-game season enough. If Joe Burrow stays healthy for the whole season, he's throwing 30-plus touchdowns. This line is 4.5 touchdowns too low. What makes your app special? I downloaded it and not sure what it does or how things work. Yeah, good question, Trevor. So what the app is, this is obviously not the peak season for the WalterPicks app. But what the app does, it helps you with everything for your fantasy league. First of all, the Who Do I Draft tool. You can tap on any two players, and you'll get to a comparison screen like this. What this screen does, it gives you the average draft position for each of the players, but it also gives you the best case scenario, the ceiling, for each of the players based on 10,000 simulations of the season, and it also gives you the worst case scenario, the floor, for each of the players based on 10,000 simulations of the season. If you scroll down, also, you'll see some stats from the previous season to compare any two players. The logic here is that every single draft pick comes down to you deciding between two players. And so we're going to give you, using this app leverages machine learning and simulations of the upcoming season, math, to give you the best and worst case scenario and the most accurate median projection for every single player. If I were to scroll up here a little too, you would see the projected points per game for each of the players. This is what the draft tool does. We're also building out functionality for August where you'll actually be able to sync this tool right to your draft. So all the guys that are picked will just leave the screen, and you'll only be able to compare players that are still available. And it will also give you feedback on positional value based on your specific league settings and who's already been picked and who you have already picked. So this is what the draft tool does. But this is not the only tool in the app. We also have a trade analyzer for Dynasty Fantasy Football and for season-long fantasy. This is the best trade analyzer out there, and it even incorporates a best player bonus, which no other trade analyzer does, but it definitely makes sense to have a best player bonus, because think about how fantasy football works. It doesn't make sense to just compare values, because you're only starting so many players in fantasy. It is advantageous to be getting the best player in a trade. And that's why there's a best player bonus in the trade analyzer for both Dynasty and for season long. But the trade analyzer is not where the app ends. We also have a lineup optimizer for DraftKings and for FanDuel. So if you're playing and submitting lineups throughout the season on DraftKings and FanDuel, our app leverages linear programming and our machine learning projections. So basically all you need to do is just pick the pool of players that you are most into for that week, hit one button, and then it will give you the 5 best lineups with all of those players. But that's also not all. We also have exploitable player prop picks based on our AI projections every single week throughout the NFL season. And you can go into the app, you can see the picks from last season. If you tap on the player prop picks for the NFL season, you'll see every single pick we made last season. The app is completely transparent. We track all of our accuracy. We are very public with the accuracy of basically everything that we're projecting, which also is not something any other platform does. So hopefully that is a little bit of background on how the WalterPicks app works, and I definitely would appreciate you checking it out. And also give me some feedback. Tell me what you like and don't like about it. I'm definitely all ears, and we are always improving. We are always improving the app. All right, I got to draft some wide receivers here on the clock. I'll take my guy Quintez Cephas. I don't love drafting the Lions receivers when I already have DeAndre Swift, but I also think Quintez Cephas could be the starting number 1 receiver for the Lions. Like, it's very possible. The lineup is worth every penny. The Dynasty is missing a few younger players, but very good. Huckleberry, thanks for that heads up. If you let me know which guys are missing, I can definitely add that. Is there any strat for a 14-man league? Yes. Cubs fan. I am in a 14-man league. It's actually my most important league. It's my longest tenured league I've ever been in. It's with the kids that I went to middle school with. We still have that same league. It is a 14-man league. It is extremely competitive. And 14-man leagues do require slightly different strategy. You need to take a running back. At least 1, I'd argue 2, in the first 3 rounds. If you don't, you're basically toast. You basically need to get very lucky on the waiver wire, but the thing about 14-man leagues is the waiver wire is brutal. It is almost impossible to find anything. Because not only are you competing against 14 people on the waiver wire, but you also just have thinner waiver wires because there's 14 teams with 12 to 15 players per team. So I would argue get the scarce positions early. Don't draft a quarterback early. Don't draft a tight end early. Get running backs and wide receivers as early as you possibly can. That'd be my general advice, assuming it's kind of standard scoring. All right, I'm going to do one more draft live on YouTube. Let's see what pick we get here. I'm feeling energized right now. I'm locked in, guys. I'm getting excited. I have a day and a half left in my school year. I'm about to be doing WalterPicks. Oh, man, and there is absolutely nobody in this lobby. We'll see how long it takes. I must have just missed the next one. How many times can you say basically? Probably a lot. I imagine, if you're asking that question. Get people that touch the ball. Yeah, I agree. The thing, so this guy's saying, get people that touch the ball the most and score the most. This is the thing about that argument. And I actually 100% agree with that first part. Get guys that touch the ball the most, specifically running backs. I have personally been a part of building artificially intelligent algorithms to project weekly fantasy points. And by far, specifically the running back position, but by far the biggest indicator of fantasy success is volume. And this isn't that surprising. You have to touch the ball to get yards and to score points. Like it's not that hard to understand, right? Volume is king though, specifically at the running back position. It's basically everything. Like look at a guy like Josh Jacobs. He gets 1,000 yards, but on like 50 to 100 more carries than a guy like Chase Edmonds, for example. Not saying Josh Jacobs was more efficient than Chase Edmonds. He definitely wasn't. But he also scored a lot more fantasy points. This is just a random example I came up with in my head. But the touchdown things is interesting because the volume is actually relatively predictable in terms of NFL stats. We're not that bad at projecting volume. But what's much harder to project is touchdowns. We are extremely bad at projecting touchdowns. And the reason for that is they're one of the most volatile stats in the NFL. It's actually one of the most volatile and hard to predict stats in all of sports because a 1 yard carry from the 1 yard line is a touchdown, but a 1 yard carry from the 50 yard line is basically worth 0 points in fantasy. This is why it's a very hard game to predict. So the best way to predict touchdowns is to do your best to just predict which offenses are going to be the best. And this is also something we're not that good at. My insight because of you, thank you, man, is Lawrence Maroney a first or second rounder this year? I like your questions, man. You got to come into these streams more often. Get Henry Ruggs steal of the draft. Yeah, Henry Ruggs definitely is upside, but I'd say there's a better chance that Henry Ruggs continues to be a bust than that he pans out. But at his cost, I'm in. Like, the cost is pretty reasonable. You're getting Henry Ruggs. In fantasy football, guys, it's all a game of cost. Don't get locked into players. Get locked into cost. Cost is everything. It's an entire game of opportunity cost. This is why you need to be drafting running backs at least 2 in your first 3 rounds. It's about opportunity cost. Because if you wait to draft running backs, you're going to be getting really, really sketchy running backs. Mike Davis, Myles Gaskin, James Robinson, Josh Jacobs. Guys that have a lot of question marks. And you're going to be drafting them at the same time other people are getting Michael Thomas. Other people are getting Allen Robinson, Terry McLaurin, CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper. This is like these wide receivers are getting drafted the same time as Mike Davis and Myles Gaskin. It's insane. So just draft a couple running backs early. You're still going to get very good wide receivers in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th round. Can't wait for James White to win MVP this season. That would be hype. Who are your top 5 quarterbacks this year? The top 4 to me are very obvious. And honestly, the top 5 are pretty obvious as well. I'd say that number 5 is definitely for me Dak Prescott. I'd say the top 4, number 1 is definitely for me Patrick Mahomes. The next 3 I could see argued in any order, and I wouldn't really push back about any order about the next 3 guys. I personally have just been trying to draft the 4th guy that's around the latest. I don't really care which one it ends up being. For me, it's Patrick Mahomes the clear number 1. Josh Allen is probably number 2. But I could see Kyler Murray or Lamar Jackson also being number 2 in fantasy football. So the top 4, I think the tiers of quarterbacks, tier 1, it's Patrick Mahomes, Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, in any particular order. I think the order I would go with, if you forced me to go with an order, I would go Patrick Mahomes, then Josh Allen, then Kyler Murray, then Lamar Jackson, just because Lamar Jackson's the worst passer out of the group. He's also the best rusher out of the group, and he also has improved weapons in the passing game, so don't get me wrong. Lamar Jackson could be the number 1 overall quarterback this season, but all 4 of those guys could be. That's why they're in tier 1. And that's why I'm just trying to draft the guy that's around the latest out of those 4 guys. And the quarterback position, guys, to me, hasn't been that interesting in fantasy for quite some time because the very clear best strategy in fantasy football is to just wait on quarterback. Because just look at the last 3 years. You got Josh Allen in round 10 last year. You got Lamar Jackson in round 10 the year before. You got Patrick Mahomes in round 12 the year before that. You just wait on quarterback, and even if you miss, then you just get some guys in the waiver wire like Ryan Fitzmagic for us last season, and you use the WalterPicks app, which gives you free streaming advice throughout the entire season, and you get like top 8 quarterback production for free, basically. But I feel like things are changing a little bit this year. Because the late round quarterback strategy is starting to get mainstream. Someone said, what about 2 QB leagues? I'll get to that in a second. But I feel like the late round quarterback strategy is starting to get mainstream to the point where you're getting one of Kyler Murray, Josh Allen, or Lamar Jackson in the 5th or 6th round of 12-person leagues. The 5th or 6th round, you've already gotten 2 workhorse running backs. You've already gotten 2 or 3 legit number 1 wide receivers, and you're still going to be able to get Kyler Murray, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, these Konami code quarterbacks who are putting up, in a lot of cases, 30 points in like half of their games. Kyler Murray, Josh Allen, and Patrick Mahomes, who could throw for 300 yards, and Kyler Murray and Josh Allen could also rush for 100 yards in a game. It's insane. It's insane. And I'm willing to take those guys in round 5. If they're there in round 5, especially if the other 4 have already gone, or the other 3 have already gone, whatever's left of Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, and Lamar Jackson, I'm in on. I haven't drafted Patrick Mahomes, I don't think, a single time, because he's going in like round 2 or round 3. But Kyler Murray, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson in round 5, you can count me in, man. You can count me in. Yeah, at least one, especially in best ball leagues. They aren't there in round 5. So I'm doing solely best ball drafts so far. They have been there in round 5. I'd honestly be surprised in thinking about the leagues that I'm in, especially with some of my friends, if they are there in round 5 in the traditional season-long league. But in best ball leagues, when you do get one of these guys, you also get this added advantage of only needing to draft 2 quarterbacks, which to me is it's a worthwhile investment. Cam Akers breakout this year? Yes. I do think Cam Akers is going to break out this season. It's why I'm confidently drafting him in the back end of the 1st, early 2nd round. Thoughts on DeAndre Swift? Yes, I have thoughts on DeAndre Swift. I have been thinking about DeAndre Swift and researching DeAndre Swift a considerable amount recently because DeAndre Swift was headed towards my do not draft list. He was heading there. He was heading towards the do not draft list for me. And I do not put anyone on the do not draft list lightly because it is a big move for me to do this. I have thousands of dollars at stake in fantasy. And if I put the wrong guys on the do not draft list, I'm almost definitely going to get crushed. And my do not draft list for the last 3 years has been very, very on the money. It has saved me personally thousands of dollars. It is what got me not to draft some of the most glaring busts in fantasy over the last 3 years. And I wanted to. My instinct was to put DeAndre Swift on this list. There's so many things going against him. He's on potentially the worst offense in the NFL. Look at their wide receiver depth chart. Quintez Cephas, Tyrell Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Brashad Perriman. I don't think any of those guys would even be a wide receiver 2 on any other NFL team. Maybe their 3rd wide receiver on some NFL teams. They could be last in the league in points scored. And they signed Jamal Williams, and they keep saying they want to do this like running back by committee approach where they're playing the hot hand, whatever that means, when DeAndre Swift is obviously light years better than Jamal Williams. But there's a lot going for DeAndre Swift as well. Because if you do look at that wide receiver depth chart, you can talk yourself into DeAndre Swift ending the season, if he stays healthy, as top 2 in targets on the team. And if he does that, he's a top 10 wide receiver in PPR leagues. Sorry, running back in PPR leagues. But not only that, if you look at what the Lions did this offseason, the biggest improvements they made were with the offensive line. And DeAndre Swift's offensive line last season was bottom 10 in the league, and it might actually be top 10 in the league this season. It is very possible that the Lions have a top 10 offensive line, and if they do, the Lions are going to surprise a lot of people in a lot of games. Because offensive line is the most crucial, outside of quarterback, the most crucial thing in the NFL is offensive line. We saw it in the Super Bowl, right front and center for all of us to see. So this is why I'm definitely not putting DeAndre Swift on my do not draft list. But the other part about DeAndre Swift is his price has dropped a lot in the last month. I've been drafting for like 2 months now because I'm a complete degenerate when it comes to fantasy, and I draft as early as I possibly can. But DeAndre Swift is going in the 3rd round now. So like it's not that big of a risk for me anymore in the 3rd round. I'm gladly taking him as my last running back. 3 straight running backs I did in my last draft. I went Christian McCaffrey 1st overall, Clyde Edwards-Helaire at the end of the 2nd round, and DeAndre Swift at the beginning of the 3rd. That's my thoughts on DeAndre Swift. Yeah, I agree, Mr. BRR1214. Who are your do not draft players this year? This is a good question, and I absolutely will be making a video about this on TikTok. I'm not going to release the do not draft list yet, and partially because it's not officially finished. But some guys that are on it at the current moment, a few guys that are on the do not draft list at the current moment. One of them is if his price does not change. If his price does not change, it's Mark Andrews. It's Mark Andrews. How are we going to trust Mark Andrews? They added Sammy Watkins. They drafted Rashad Bateman. They are the most run-heavy team in the NFL. But this is not the main reason. These are not even the main reasons Mark Andrews is likely going to end up on the do not draft list this year. As a little sneak peek to the do not draft list that has literally saved me thousands of dollars over the last 3 years in fantasy. But guys, Mark Andrews, and I like Mark Andrews. I think he's a pretty good tight end. But he's also getting drafted right next to TJ Hawkinson, who has clear volume coming his way for the same reasons we just discussed about DeAndre Swift. TJ Hawkinson's the favorite to lead the Lions in receiving. Mark Andrews might be number 2 or 3 passing option for the Ravens this season on a team, a Baltimore Ravens team that is bottom 5 in the NFL in passing attempts. So there's just too much risk for a 5th or 6th round price tag on Mark Andrews, especially when TJ Hawkinson's sitting right there next to him. So I think Mark Andrews is one of the clear do not draft guys this season. Who's on your do not draft list so far? Yeah, that's definitely one of them. And I'm back on the clock, guys. We are doing another live draft on YouTube. Come check it out. And if you're watching live on YouTube, guys, and you haven't subscribed yet, definitely hit that subscribe button. I think most of you have already subscribed. I do appreciate that. Teddy O, Cam Akers is going to break out this season, man. I'm telling you. Sermon or Carter in Dynasty? This is an interesting one. I think Sermon is the guy I would lean towards, and I think he's the one that's being picked earlier, if I'm not wrong there. He definitely is being picked earlier in season-long leagues, but Sermon is just tethered to a more exciting offense at the current moment, and that does matter. I won't be surprised if we, at the end of the day, all agree that Michael Carter is better than Trey Sermon. That wouldn't shock me. But it also wouldn't shock me if it's the other way around. And if it is, it's going to be light years difference in terms of fantasy because Trey Sermon is tethered to Trey Lance, who is extremely exciting, tethered to Kyle Shanahan. So I think that Trey Sermon's got the most upside. I'm going to be taking Travis Kelce or Ezekiel Elliott here. I have the 8th overall pick in this draft I'm doing right now. I'm trying to win $1 million, guys, with this draft. About to go running back, then QB in Darren Waller, then come back and get wide receiver. Yeah, I don't hate that. Thoughts on Jonathan Taylor? To me, Jonathan Taylor is the most likely first-round pick to end up on the do not draft list. And he would be the most risky player that I put on there. I almost never put first-round players on there because, the first-round players are there for a reason. But, guys, Jonathan Taylor's clearly got the most risk in the first round. And the reason for that is Marlon Mack and Nyheim Hines. They are going to be involved. If you go back and just remember the first half of last season, it was Jonathan Taylor getting 33% of the work. He wasn't even getting half. He was literally splitting it in thirds. Him, Marlon Mack, Nyheim Hines. Marlon Mack got hurt very early on, and still Jonathan Taylor was not getting a big workload. We all obviously know now what Jonathan Taylor is capable of. And we all really knew, if you're paying attention before the season, how good Jonathan Taylor was. He was a beast at Wisconsin. But the question is, how much work will he get early on in the season? Because there's a chance his start to the season isn't that much different than the start to last season. And if that happens, good luck to everyone that drafted him in the first round. I think Cam Akers is safer. I think Ezekiel Elliott's definitely safer. I honestly would prefer Saquon Barkley. I think I would prefer Austin Eckler as well. I still like Jonathan Taylor. It's just the price is a little risky to me. Should I trade Diggs for Hawkinson and Goodwin? I'm assuming you mean Godwin. And I need a little more context about your league to answer this confidently, but you're getting a very good return here in TJ Hawkinson and Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin's also pretty young. Diggs is younger, I believe. Maybe they're about the same age. Honestly, maybe Godwin's younger. That probably means they're around the same age. I'd have to double check. But nonetheless, Godwin's a very good dynasty asset if it's a dynasty league. I'm about to be back on the clock here. I already got Travis Kelce. Right, I got Travis Kelce on this team. Let's take a look. Yep, I have Travis Kelce. This is opening me up for the potential 0 running back roster, and we're going to send it, guys. We're sending it. I like Najee Harris, and I want to take Najee Harris. But there's also not a player that has more upside than Calvin Ridley. I want to take Najee Harris, but I'm going to go with Calvin Ridley because I want to keep the door open for the zero running back squad here. It's just a 12-team regular fantasy league. Yeah, 12-team regular fantasy league. I think I would do it. Lamb or Amari Cooper? This is a good one. I actually asked this question on Twitter. If you don't follow me on Twitter yet, guys, at Samuel Factor. I have like almost 65,000 followers on TikTok. I have like 1,000 on Twitter. My Twitter game is lacking. Gonna try to pick that up this season. But at Samuel Factor on Twitter. But I asked on a poll on Twitter, would you prefer CeeDee Lamb or Amari Cooper? And 52% of the responses said CeeDee Lamb. On Underdog, take a look at this. On Underdog, Amari Cooper's average draft position, 33.2. CeeDee Lamb's, 34.2. So CeeDee Lamb's going 2 picks after him on Underdog. But if you go and do a best ball draft on DraftKings, CeeDee Lamb is getting picked before him. It is really close. I would lean towards Amari Cooper, though. I think Amari Cooper's safer. Don't get me wrong. I think CeeDee Lamb has Calvin Ridley level upside this season, and you just watched me draft Calvin Ridley in the second round. But I do believe that Amari Cooper is the safer option. Amari Cooper, guys, was really, really, really good with Dak Prescott last season, and he still stayed very consistent without him. CeeDee Lamb was good too, but I think Amari Cooper's just gets the slight edge. Rank Eckler, Akers, Zeke, or CEH. I can get 2 of the 4. Yeah, if I were to rank these guys, Zeke would be number 1. I think Akers would probably be number 2. In a PPR league, though, you could talk me into Eckler over Akers, and CEH is number 4. Jane. I got you guys. Antonio and Mac. That was good teamwork, guys. I feel like you don't like Saquon. I was planning on drafting him at 3rd in my main league. Yeah, guys, Saquon Barkley, and I've already flip-flopped. And if you follow me close enough, you will realize that I change my opinions. I hold the right to change all of them, and I don't think you are doing things right if you aren't open to changing your opinions. I'm not going to get locked into all of my takes, because that is where you open yourself up to the risk to not adjusting to new information. But Saquon Barkley, I was drafting him 2nd overall. I started drafting about a month ago. And before any of these reports came out that he might be brought along slowly, I was drafting him 2nd overall. I was taking him before Dalvin Cook. I was taking him before Derrick Henry. I was taking him before Alvin Kamara, for everyone other than Christian McCaffrey. But as these reports started to come out that he might not be seeing his full workload in the beginning of the season, I started to say, all right, I got to start reconsidering this a little. I don't want my 1st round pick not to play week 1. And how long is it going to take till he sees that full workload? That's the real question with Saquon Barkley. But once he does, he's going to be a top 5 asset in fantasy. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Let's take a look at the running backs. Is DeAndre Swift gone? No, he is not. We are going to snag DeAndre Swift in the 3rd round yet again. And we are loving the start to this draft. We're loving the start to this draft. I have been taking DeAndre Swift more and more and more and more, guys. In the 3rd round. This is back-to-back drafts. I just took this guy in the 3rd round. And I'm starting to talk myself into him. He could have legit workhorse potential even with splitting the work with Jamal Williams, because he's the 2nd best receiver on the team. I think I like him more than Antonio Gibson. But Antonio Gibson's average draft position is earlier. So that's a contrarian opinion. So take this with a big grain of salt, because most people are going to tell you Antonio Gibson over DeAndre Swift. The biggest concern for me about Antonio Gibson, I actually like him a lot too. And I think Ryan Fitzmagic, is going to bring that whole offense up. The biggest concern for me, and I don't know why nobody's talking about this, and maybe I'm overthinking this like a lot. And if you follow my content closely, you know that one of the edges I have in fantasy is that I basically completely ignore injuries. Because people overhype the injury thing so much. They overhype the injury thing insane amount. We pretend like we know who's going to get injured. We don't know who's going to get injured, guys. Everyone, especially running backs, have such a high injury rate. Let's stop pretending like we know who's going to get injured. But I do absolutely hate drafting guys in June and July and August who are already injured. And this is the case with Antonio Gibson. He had a turf toe injury last year. And he did not get surgery on it, and he is still suffering that same turf toe injury. He's currently playing through it. He still participated in minicamp, but he does still have this same injury that sidelined him last season, and to me that's kind of concerning. That's my biggest concern for him. He's going to get 180 plus targets. Yeah, MT is definitely underrated. Where does Devontae Adams' value land with Rodgers drama? Brad, good question. I would argue that Devontae Adams is the number 5 overall wide receiver without Aaron Rodgers, and he's the number 1 overall wide receiver with him. So it's not like it's that big of a deal for him in fantasy. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a big deal, right? The floor for Devontae Adams is lowered so much without Aaron Rodgers because the offense could be really, 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 really bad. Like, they could be one of the worst offenses in the league without him. But on the other side of that is he still has very, very little competition, like almost none. I'm going to take Tyler Lockett again, I think. I think I like Tyler Lockett more than Chris Godwin here. But I took him last time. So I'm going to go with Chris Godwin this time. I got to diversify a little bit. But I do think Tyler Lockett's upside on a weekly basis is higher than Chris Godwin's. MT or Swift at the top of the 3rd round. So I kind of flip-flopped on this too. I was taking Michael Thomas. Basically, my strategy, if I pull this up here, you'll be able to see my most drafted players. I've done about 120 drafts so far. Let's take a look at this. My most drafted players, if I can find this, is Michael Thomas. One of my most drafted wide receivers is Michael Thomas. And the reason for that is basically every single time he was available in the 3rd round, I drafted him. And that's changed a little bit recently. Let's see if I can pull this up. You can see Michael Thomas is my 4th most drafted wide receiver. 26% of the drafts, I have taken Michael Thomas. But he also is going around the same place as DeAndre Swift. And I'm starting to talk myself a lot into DeAndre Swift. Someone asked, why are you so high on DeAndre Swift? I talked a little bit about this already on the stream, but it's okay. I'll run through it one more time. The big reason I'm high on DeAndre Swift, yes, he's on a horrible offense. Yes, he's going to split work with Jamal Williams. But also, he's probably the 2nd best receiver on the team. And he also could have a top 10 offensive line. Put those two things together in a half PPR or PPR league, and you have the making of a top 10 running back in fantasy football. A consistent one. He just needs 5+ targets a game. What draft pick number do you want this year in a 10-man league? The draft pick I want this year, guys, and it's been this year this way for at least, I think, 4 straight seasons. It's the 1st overall pick because Christian McCaffrey is the biggest advantage in fantasy football that you can get. And I just had the 1st overall pick in the beginning of the stream. I did a live draft. I'm doing another live draft on YouTube right now. I'll switch to the draft board. I'm sorry, guys. I feel like I haven't been on top of the YouTube stream as much as I would like to. But we can switch to the draft board here and see how these first 4 rounds have gone. Take a look at these first 4 rounds. Look at the 1st overall pick. Devontae Adams, didn't he go 2nd overall in the last draft I did? Am I going crazy? Devontae Adams went 1st overall in this draft? What's going on? This is bananas. I had the 8th pick. I got Travis Kelce with the 8th pick. Then I went with Calvin Ridley, then DeAndre Swift, then Chris Godwin. I'm going to need 2 or 3 more running backs on this team. But I also only need 1 more tight end. And I'm off to a very strong start at the wide receiver position. Patrick Mahomes has been picked 5th round. There's no other quarterbacks that have been picked yet in this league. Half PPR is still Zeke, Akers, Eckler, or CEH. I would go Zeke, then Akers, then Eckler, then CEH. That's how I would do it. My heart, though, Matt, is telling me I want Eckler over Akers. But with all the drafts I've done, I feel like I just have to say Akers over Eckler. Almost always he's getting picked before Eckler. Why isn't MT rated round 1 or 2? Antonio, people are very, very sour on Michael Thomas. They're very sour on him because look at what happened last season. Not only and people have also soured on Julio Jones, by the way, for a similar reason. But I want to explain the key differences between Michael Thomas and Julio Jones because they had similarly disappointing seasons, but they were actually very different seasons if you look into it. And I really want to take Kyler Murray and Lamar Jackson here, but I'm gonna actually take. Yeah, you're right. I gotta take one of them. I'm gonna take Kyler Murray. And now I only need 2 quarterbacks. I like to take Kyler Murray and Lamar Jackson if they're there in the 5th round. To me, this is too late to get a guy like this. And it allows me to only draft 2 quarterbacks, which means I can draft an additional running back now. And I'm hoping that Kareem Hunt is still around with my next pick. We'll see if he is. I just got sidetracked. I'm sorry. I'm drafting live right now. But if you come to the YouTube stream, you can see the draft picks as they're happening. And like this is a little crazy to me, right? Like I just drafted Kyler Murray, who in the first half of the season last year, guys, was averaging like 29 fantasy points per game, which was like the clear number 1 quarterback in fantasy. He's one of the few guys that has this insane rushing upside, but also very high passing upside. I absolutely love Kyler Murray in the 5th round. Debo or Brandon Ayuka the Bazooka? I lean towards Ayuka the Bazooka, one, because he has a better nickname, but two, because he balled out as a rookie. I think they're both really good, though. I do think they're both really good. But I do worry about both of them with Trey Lance, because I think that team is going to really, really be run heavy. Kareem Hunt has not been picked yet, which is good. I would love to get him in the 6th round of this draft. I think Kareem Hunt's one of my most drafted running backs in best ball specifically because the ceiling, obviously, for Kareem Hunt is just insane. Do you have a podcast? I do not currently. I might in the future. Right now, I'm very focused on enhancing the TikTok content because TikTok is my primary and where I feel like my best platform is. And so I'm going to focus on what I'm best at. But I definitely could see a podcast for myself in the future. I actually did have a podcast a long time ago for about a year. This actually was like the very first NFL content thing I did. It was a great experience. Highly recommend starting a podcast for anyone out there. But it is hard to build an audience just with a podcast. I think TikTok's the number one place for people to build audiences right now, just in general, as content creators. I don't know why people aren't doubling down on the TikTok platform as much as we've seen. Thoughts on AJ Green this year? I have drafted AJ Green a little bit. Like in the early parts of best ball drafting like a month ago, but the problem with AJ Green, and I was talking about Michael Thomas and Julio Jones, thank you for reminding me with the AJ Green comment. The problem with AJ Green, and he was terrible last season. Like he had a lot of volume and he was just awful. There was a point where Kareem Hunt gets snagged one pick before me. We absolutely hate to see it. Yeah, absolutely hate to see it. That's really annoying. I don't want Myles Gaskin, but I have to take Myles Gaskin. Hate when this happens. All right, we got Myles Gaskin. It's okay. We're gonna survive. He was at a pretty good value, almost 10 picks after his average draft position, and the Dolphins did nothing this offseason. But guys, we're in the running back dead zone right now. This is what I get for not drafting running backs early. This is the lesson we learn. This is the risk of doing zero running back strategy. I'm drafting in the running back dead zone now. I have to draft Myles Gaskin, who is probably going to lose red zone work to Malcolm Brown. I think I was just shitting on Myles Gaskin like last draft, but now he's on my team. This is the circle of life. Who's on the squad so far? So if you're not watching live on YouTube, I went with Travis Kelce at the 8th overall pick. Then I followed that up with Calvin Ridley in the 2nd round. In the 3rd round, I went with DeAndre Swift. In the 4th round, I went with Chris Godwin. In the 5th round, I got Kyler Murray. And in the 6th round, I got Myles Gaskin. So I got Kyler Murray, DeAndre Swift, Myles Gaskin, Calvin Ridley, Chris Godwin, Travis Kelce so far. The good thing so far about this roster construction in a best ball league, I now only need one more quarterback. I only need one more tight end, which is going to mean I get to draft more running backs and wide receivers on this team. Remember, in a best ball format, there's no in-season management. I can't add, drop, trade players throughout the season. And there's also no start-sit decisions. So roster construction is like massively important. Like it's the most important thing. It's actually more important than the players you actually pick, which is hard for a lot of people to wrap their heads around sometimes, but it's true. Roster construction trumps everything in this format. So I am feeling pretty good about the roster construction so far, but I don't love Myles Gaskin as my 2nd running back. Thoughts on Najee Harris? Yeah, I think he's one of the few guys that could get 300 carries. Like, this is my general thought and has been since the draft. I think that he's one of the few running backs that could get 300 carries this season, and for that reason, he's a pretty good 2nd round pick. In this draft I just did, I took Calvin Ridley over him in the 2nd round. I actually haven't done that much in drafts. I feel like I've drafted Najee Harris over Calvin Ridley actually pretty consistently, but Calvin Ridley's safer. I mean, like we all know Calvin Ridley's going to be a wide receiver 1 if he just stays healthy for the whole season. Najee Harris, the big concern for me about Najee Harris is the Steelers' offensive line, which was the big weakness for the team last season. Who are your favorite late round quarterbacks? Jeremy, thanks for the question, man. And Hawkinson or Pitts for PPR? It's Pitts. It's Pitts over Hawkinson. Pitts has higher upside because he's in just a better passing attack. Hawkinson could see more targets. It wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't shock me if Hawkinson finishes ahead of Pitts. But Pitts is my 4th ranked tight end. It's Travis Kelce, then it's Darren Waller, and then it's George Kittle, though I'm very concerned about George Kittle. And if Trey Lance wins the starting quarterback job, there's no way George Kittle pays off as 3rd round or 2nd round price tag that he's currently at. Then it is Kyle Pitts, though, at number 4, and TJ Hawkinson's number 5. So they're close. But Kyle Pitts is going almost like a full round or 2 rounds before TJ Hawkinson. Take a look at the tight ends that have been drafted so far in this draft. We saw Kyle Pitts go in the 5th round. TJ Hawkinson went in the 6th round. I have not drafted any tight ends yet on this team which definitely is cause for a little bit of concern. I'm disappointed I missed out on Devonta Smith there. If we look at the running backs available, it is starting to get very ugly. It's starting to get very, very ugly. And I'm gonna have to I have to take a running back here. And I'm gonna take Raheem Mostert, even though I really want Damian Harris, because there's a chance Damian Harris is there with my next pick. If he's not, then I might honestly end up with just these 3 running backs. I might end up with just, look how disgusting this is. One of these 3 guys is almost guaranteed to bust, just based on probabilities alone. But again, I'm playing in a tournament. I got to take some risks. Mark Andrews over Pitts. No. Not Mark Andrews over Pitts. Jamison Crowder still relevant. You gotta make me go there. Jamison Elite Crowder will always and forever be relevant in our hearts and in our minds. But in fantasy football this season, you can't spend an early pick on Jamison Elite Crowder. But you don't need to. This is the good thing. You don't need to. And it won't surprise me at all if Jamison Elite Crowder emerges as the number 2 receiver for the Jets. I could see him beating out Corey Davis. I could see him beating out Denzel Mims. I think Elijah Moore is going to be the number 1 receiver, though. I think he's going to be the number 1 receiver over Corey Davis. I think that it's going to be Jamison Elite Crowder and Corey Davis fighting for that number 2 receiver spot. Overall, though, I think the Jets are kind of just a generally slept-on team. I think their offensive line is much improved. I think they're going to benefit massively from the Adam Gase effect, which we all know quite well. We know when Adam Gase is in close proximity to you on a football field, you perform significantly worse. And so when he leaves, you automatically, by the osmosis of Adam Gase leaving, you automatically perform better. So I think that the Jets are going to net be a lot better than what people think this season. But is Jamison Elite Crowder a guy we can trust? I don't know about that. I want to trust him. And I'm still drafting him, obviously, because I have this weird thing for Jamison Elite Crowder. But I do think that Elijah Moore is the biggest threat to him. Michael Thomas over Ridley. Yeah, I mean, no, definitely not. But the nice thing about Michael Thomas is you're getting him 2 rounds after Calvin Ridley. That's the nice thing about Michael Thomas right now. Any tips for an auction draft if you ever do them? Yeah, I haven't done them that much in full transparency. But in the times I have done them, I've absolutely loved them. I honestly think it's the most fair format of a draft. And Damian Harris gets snagged 1 pick before me. I swear this guy's listening to the live stream. He must be. He snagged Damian Harris from us and Kareem Hunt. Absolutely brutal. Absolutely brutal, this draft. All right, we're back on the clock. I'm going to go with Brandon Cooks here. Let's take a look at the tight ends really quickly. I kind of want to go Logan Thomas, though. No, I'm going to go Brandon Cooks first. Brandon Cooks, guys, to me, especially in best ball drafts, it's just a screaming value. He's the very clear wide receiver 1 on a team that is going to get destroyed this season. They're going to be down 2 touchdowns in the first quarter in the majority of their games. Very, very negative game scripts for Brandon Cooks to excel. Deshaun Watson's almost definitely not going to play for most or all of the season. But Brandon Cooks is still going to see a lot of volume. How do you feel about Julio this year? Julio Jones is a guy that I believe is just generally, talent-wise, has been slept on really all throughout last season. And before the trade and after the trade, people don't quite realize how good Julio Jones still is. So I want to start off with that. But from a fantasy football perspective, I don't love the landing spot. I was really excited about it when it first happened because I absolutely love when big trades happen in the NFL. I think it's great for the league. But I do not love the landing spot. The more I analyze it, he's on a run-first team. He's the number 2 receiver. And he's just not going to be consistent in season-long leagues. This is the big concern. He's going to have huge weeks because, again, he still balls out, guys. Julio Jones was number 1 or number 3. I forget, top 3 definitely in the NFL in yards per route run last season. He was a top 3 efficient wide receiver in the league. And this is circling back for those of you that have stayed tuned in to my absolute ranting here. Julio Jones and Michael Thomas both were disappointing last season. They both struggled with injuries. But the big difference is that Julio Jones was actually good when he was playing. Julio Jones was a top 3 efficient receiver in the league. He averaged 85 yards per game. Michael Thomas was straight trash last season when he played. Let's discount the injuries, all right? He didn't play for a lot of games. We're not going to look at... I never look at season-long stats. We look at per-game stats because that's the most fair way to look at things. You look at the per-game stats for Michael Thomas. He was trash last season when playing. And again, maybe that had something to do with the injuries. And I'm fine still drafting Michael Thomas in the 3rd round, but it's important to understand he was not good last season, guys. He was very, very bad on a team that still he had no competition. I swear, Logan Thomas is about to get snagged right before me on this pick. I just know it. I know it. I feel like everyone I'm drafting against right now, for whatever reason, is in this live stream. And it's probably not true, but it just has felt this way in this draft. Noah Fant gets picked. Oh my God, here we go. No, he has George Kittle already. There's no way he takes Logan Thomas. There's no way he takes Logan Thomas. Yeah, all right, let's go. We got Logan Thomas on the squad. Again, this is the end of the tight end tiers for me. Look at the other tight ends left, guys. If you're watching live on YouTube, look at the other tight ends. The jump from Logan Thomas to Robert Tonyan and Mike Gesicki and Irv Smith and Evan Ingram is massive. It is a massive, massive leap. Logan Thomas with Ryan Fitzmagic has actually a lot of upside. And I know they have Curtis Samuel and Terry McLaurin there too, but there's definitely upside. And now I am done drafting tight ends. Absolutely love it. I'm done drafting tight ends. I like when I can just finish a position earlier than other people, because now I locked in the potential to be the number 1 tight end scoring in this league. But I also only have to draft 2 tight ends. I love that. Who's going to benefit more, Eckler or Keenan Allen? It's Eckler. It's definitely Eckler. And it's definitely Eckler to me. Eckler has an Alvin Kamara level season in him. He definitely does. If he can just stay healthy for the whole season, and if they give him the workload that he should get, he has a Alvin Kamara level season upside, and I think that is league winning upside. Michael Thomas was hurt and no QB. Yeah, again, that all is true, but he still was bad when he played. Julio Jones was also hurt and also didn't have a great quarterback, but he did ball out. He was averaging 85 yards a game. The other part about Michael Thomas is he had zero competition for targets. There was still nobody there. So that's the other kind of negative for Michael Thomas last season. But he definitely was injured. And that is definitely true. Matt, what's going on? Akers or Eckler, half PPR, please, Sam. Half PPR, I'd go Akers. I would go Akers over Eckler in a half PPR league. But they're both going to be good. Expected round for Font for tight end this year? Great question. We actually just saw him get drafted in this live draft. I'm doing a $25 Best Ball Mania draft on Underdog right now. If you haven't checked out the Underdog platform yet, guys, it is the best place to do best ball drafts if you're into best ball drafts. And in this best ball draft, we just saw Noah Fant get picked in the 9th round. Right before Logan Thomas, right after Tyler Higbee. This is pretty standard, I think, to what I've seen so far in about the 120 drafts I've done on Underdog so far. If you do sign up for Underdog, by the way, use code Walter. You'll get a $25 match on any $25 deposit, on your first $25 deposit that you make if you use code Walter when you sign up, and I do appreciate you using that code. It does help us out a lot. Is Edwards-Helaire going to go off this year? Yeah, he probably is. And the nice thing about him in fantasy is that you don't have to spend as much on him this season. You're getting him in the end of the 2nd round or the beginning of the 3rd round. And that's perfect spot for Clyde Money Edwards-Helaire. We're getting Michael Pittman here 100%. Let's take a look at the receivers that are still here. There's definitely a drop-off. I like Michael Pittman and Darnell Mooney a lot, though I actually am starting to get a little concerned about Darnell Mooney. I've gone through ups and downs with Darnell Mooney, and the biggest concern for me, I don't know if any of you know J.J. Zachariason from numberfire.com. He recently released a study about rookie quarterbacks and how they affect their receiving weapons. And it's very rare for a rookie quarterback to sustain more than one good receiving option, was basically the findings of the study. Almost never, and it's literally since the year 2000, the last 21 years, almost never does a rookie quarterback sustain 2 valuable fantasy receiving options. That includes tight ends. So where does that leave Darnell Mooney if Justin Fields plays? Because if Justin Fields is starting, and I think Justin Fields is really good, but I also don't want to ignore the historical data of rookie quarterbacks struggling to sustain multiple wide receivers. And we all know Allen Robinson's going to be the number 1 receiver on that offense. So I do have a little bit of concern for Darnell Mooney, but I do still think he's an absolutely dominant wide receiver and generally one of the most slept-on wide receivers in the league. And the other part of all of that is I still think Darnell Mooney's the best quarterback the Bears have had. Justin Fields is the best quarterback they've had in years. So I'm not that concerned about it, but it's definitely something to keep in mind. Is there any way I can show you one of the mock drafts I did? When would you draft a QB and tight end in a 14-man PPR league? It depends. It depends on the draft. But if I could get the last of Kyler Murray, Josh Allen, or Lamar Jackson, I think in round 4 I would do it. In round 4, I would take the last of those guys. If they're gone before then I'm waiting and I'm waiting and I'm waiting and I'm waiting and I'm taking Trey Lance in the end of the draft, towards the end of the draft. In worst case scenario, I draft Trey Lance. He doesn't work out. All right, I'll pick up Ryan Fitzpatrick in week 1. He's probably going to be a quarterback 1 in the first few weeks of the season. It's not the end of the world, and you spent nothing on the quarterback position if you get Trey Lance. So if you miss out on those top 4 guys, and you miss out on Jalen Hurts maybe in the 6th or 7th round, like, you want rushing quarterbacks, guys. You need rushing quarterbacks in fantasy. As for tight end's a whole different ballgame. Tight end is also a position that you need to either get the top guys or you need to wait basically forever. Because the gap between the good tight ends and the middle and bad, like, the middle and bad tight ends, they're all the same. Here's the tiers of tight ends. You have the first tier. Travis Kelce's in his own tier. That's tier 1. He's worth a first-round pick. Then there's tier 2. It's Darren Waller, it's George Kittle, and it's Kyle Pitts, and it's TJ Hawkinson. That's tier number 2. And you want all of these guys. I'd be willing to take Travis Kelce in the first round. I'd be willing to take Darren Waller at the back end of the second, early third round. And I don't want George Kittle that badly, but if he's there in the late third round, I'll probably take him. I'm worried about Trey Lance and how he'll affect George Kittle. I'm very happy to get Kyle Pitts in the 4th round. I'm very happy to get TJ Hawkinson in the 4th and 5th round as well. I also do like Tyler Higbee and Logan Thomas a lot too, but after that, I'm very concerned. Basically all the other guys are almost going to be all terrible and not consistent at all. So if you miss on the top guys and you're getting good value on wide receivers and running backs in those rounds, which are definitely the most important positions, then just wait and wait and wait and wait, and then just take Gerald Everett or Adam Trotman late in your draft. I like Gerald Everett as a really late round guy, but also, let's be real, he's probably not going to be consistent. All right, the running backs are starting to really, really look bad. I'm going to take Darrell Henderson. I like him as a flyer. He's the number 2 running back for the Rams, and he's an injury away for me for being a league winner. I think he's the perfect 0 running back target, and this kind of is a 0 running back build I have going here. If you take a look, guys, if you take a look at this squad I have so far, if you're watching live on YouTube, I got Kyler Murray as my 1 quarterback so far. I have 4 running backs now. DeAndre Swift was my first one, who I took in the 3rd round, and then I didn't take another one until the 5th round, Myles Gaskin. Then I took one in the 6th round, Raheem Mostert. And then my last running back I just took in the 11th round, Darrell Henderson. This is a 0 running back build, because take a look at my receivers and my tight ends. This is a very strong base of receivers. Calvin Ridley, Chris Godwin, Brandon Cooks, Michael Pittman, and then Travis Kelce, obviously the number 1 tight end, and Logan Thomas, who could fill the flex role for me some weeks, and he will definitely help me out in week 12 when I don't have Travis Kelce. So I'm liking the build so far. I think I can finish top 3 in quarterback scoring with Kyler Murray. I can finish number 1 in tight end scoring. I think I have a chance at top 3 in wide receiver scoring if I draft some other good wide receivers. And running backs is the big question mark. If Cam Akers gets hurt, though, this team could win me $1 million. That's like literally what it comes down to. And even if Cam Akers doesn't get hurt, it's not going to be that surprising to me if Darrell Henderson has some running back 3 weeks, especially if the Rams can get big leads. So I like Darrell Henderson a lot late in the draft. There's no more Malcolm Brown, guys. There's no more Malcolm Brown, so there's definitely some excitement about Darrell Henderson. And this team's also going to come a lot down to, is DeAndre Swift actually going to work out as a 3rd round pick? And I think he's going to. I've really come around to him. Lions fans here, how do you think Swift will do with the improved O-line? Austin, thank you for tuning in, man. I hope you're still here. I know that you asked this question a little while ago, but Austin, I've really started to talk myself into DeAndre Swift. I'm going to take Justin Fields with my next pick if he's there, and he is there, and this is the last quarterback I will take. And I absolutely love Trey Lance as the potential Lamar Jackson this season, but if it's not him, it's probably going to be Justin Fields. Anyways, back to DeAndre Swift. DeAndre Swift, guys, he has the best offensive line that he has had in his 1 year in the NFL. He had a bottom 10 offensive line last season. He has a top 10 offensive line this season. It's the clear strength of the Lions. The concerns for DeAndre Swift: Jamal Williams is going to get 40% of the carries at least, and that is not good. The Lions also could score the least points in the league because their receiving depth chart is atrocious. Quintus Cephas, Tyrell Williams, Brashad Perriman, Amon-Ra St. Brown. It's a joke. It's literally one of the most laughable wide receiver depth charts I've seen in my history of watching the NFL. But that also might not be the worst thing for DeAndre Swift in fantasy football, because he could finish top 2 in targets on the team. It's him and TJ Hawkinson. It's why I like both of them at their cost. DeAndre Swift's going in the 3rd round. TJ Hawkinson's going more like the 5th, 6th round. So I like both of them because they could both lead the team in targets, literally. Viewers slowly but surely coming back. Yarj, my man, how's it going? True OG. Good to see you back in the live stream. Yes, they slowly but surely are. We're getting days and days closer to the NFL season, Yarshman. This is why Superflex strategy, Jeremy, yes, you got to take a quarterback. You got to invest in quarterback earlier than you would in a Superflex league, because if there's 12 teams in your league, a lot of the teams are going to end up drafting 3, and some will even draft 4 quarterbacks, which means if you don't take 2 quarterbacks relatively early, you might not be able to start 2 quarterbacks each week, and you want to start 2 quarterbacks every single week. You want at least 3 quarterbacks on your team. And so it's good to invest in the good young quarterbacks, because the other part about this in a Superflex league, especially in dynasty leagues, specifically dynasty Superflex leagues, quarterbacks are the safest investment. Guys like Kyler Murray, Joe Burrow, guys like Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson even, Patrick Mahomes, obviously. Guys like Trey Lance and Justin Fields. These guys are going to sustain value for a long time. They're going to have long careers. So in Dynasty, I definitely recommend taking quarterbacks early and often. But in a normal season-long league still, I think you need to draft at least 1 quarterback in the first 5 rounds, which I would not always recommend in a non-Superflex league. So I'm done drafting quarterbacks on this team now, and I'm done drafting tight ends. I might be done drafting running backs. Let's take a look at the running backs. I might take Darrell Henderson, like with my last pick, or one of my last picks. Or sorry, not Darrell Henderson, Darrell Williams. Pair up the Darrells. I think they spelled Darrell differently. Yeah, there's 2 L's in Darrell Henderson. But I will potentially draft him like much later. I don't need to spend any next picks on him, which means I can focus on the wide receiver position now. And I'll gladly take Paris Campbell yet again if he's there. Again, the worst part for me about drafting DeAndre Swift is I can't stack the Detroit Lions wide receivers really late in the draft. I will draft Paris Campbell here, though. I think Paris Campbell is... And look at this report. This is the exact report we need to see. And now I can't see it because I drafted him. But I think I can if I search him. This is the exact report we want to see with Paris Campbell. Let me read this report to everyone watching live on TikTok. If you're watching live on YouTube, you can see it for yourself, I think. No, it's not going to let me. That's disappointing. But the report was that he is fully healthy. Paris Campbell is fully healthy. This is the exact news we want. Here it is. Campbell was cleared last week and is officially good to go moving forward. The Indianapolis Star reports Campbell has had some tough luck with injuries early in his career. Every single time Paris Campbell stepped on a football field his first 2 years, he just got injured immediately. It's horrible. But he is coming off a season. He literally only played 60 offensive snaps in 2 games. He had 6 catches for 71 yards. And he only played 7 games as a rookie. I'm talking about Paris Campbell here. Still, though, guys, he's only 23 years old. And he is by far the most athletic wide receiver on the team. He's going to be a good slot receiver. And he now gets Carson Wentz, who is also being slept on by the entire league and most NFL fans. Carson Wentz, still to date, the only quarterback ever to throw for 4,000 yards in a season without a single one of his receivers surpassing 1,000 yards. It's almost unheard of in the NFL. Unheard of to do that. Thoughts on Justin Herbert, since nothing really happened during the offseason for the Chargers. There was things that happened. Doesn't taking Pittman and Campbell limit your ceiling? Good question. I'll talk about this in a second. Your YouTube live feed doesn't show much. Interesting. I don't know. What do you mean by that? What by it doesn't show much? Justin Herbert's offensive line is much improved. So there was a lot of changes, actually. They now have a top 10 or 12 offensive line in the league, which is a big deal. It's a big deal. And I think that will improve Justin Herbert this season. Doesn't taking Pittman and Campbell on the same team hurt your upside? So if you take a look at the team I've drafted, so far. Let me run through the squad I got. I have drafted so far on this team. I do have Michael Pittman and Paris Campbell on the same squad. This is what we call stacking. And stacking does limit upside. But it significantly increases floor. And by increasing the floor, I increase my probability of making it to the next round in this tournament, to winning this league. Because the reason it increases the floor is the probability of Michael Pittman or Paris Campbell scoring a touchdown in any given week is higher than just two players from two different teams. Right? The probability of both of them doing it is lower, but the or probability is higher because one of the receivers on the Colts each week is likely going to score a touchdown. So by being on the same, this is the same reason too people stack receivers in DFS. But in DFS, if you stack the receivers with the quarterback, it actually does raise your ceiling because it gives you these chances at weeks where the quarterback throws for 400 yards, 4 or 5 touchdowns, and then you have all of these really, really good players concentrated on the same team. Best place to do mock drafts. Yeah, Sleeper. Sleeper's the best place definitely to do mock drafts. The best place to do real drafts, though, is Underdog Fantasy, where you can draft for as little as $3. And if you deposit $25 for the first time and you use the code Walter, you'll actually get a free $25. And you'll have $50 to draft. That's almost 8 drafts you can do. 10 drafts you can do at $5 a piece. Sorry, my mental math is struggling. It's late, guys. But the other reason I really like doing these underdog drafts is, to me, this is batting practice for the real things in August. I've gotten so much batting practice in. I have such a good feel for average draft position. The biggest concern is that I take a lot of my best ball strategies, which are best ball specific, into the season-long leagues, which I need to make sure I do not do. But other than that, it's been fantastic batting practice for me. What was the site again? What was the app? It's called Underdog Fantasy here. Check it out. And I'm back on the clock. You can also see me. I'm doing a draft live on it right now on YouTube. If you look up WalterPicks on YouTube. And I'm going to take... I want Brashad Perriman, but I'm actually going to take Jamison Elite Crowder here. I haven't drafted him enough. Let's take a look here. If I have something with Underdog on it. Here we go. It's called Underdog. Underdog Fantasy, they have a fantastic app and website. So you can draft on either the app or the website. We are in round 15, so I have 3 picks left. One of them hopefully will be Darrell Williams, is my last running back, and then 2 wide receivers. I definitely have liked how late I've been able to get Amari Rodgers. Both Brashad Perriman and Amon-Ra St. Brown and Quintez Cephas and Tyrell. Look at this. They're all still there. Has Tyrell Williams been picked? Tyrell Williams, for some reason, is the first one picked. I don't really fully understand that. He was picked in round 13. My God, all these other guys are still there. Any of these 4 guys, Tyrell Williams, Quintez Cephas, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Brashad Perriman, literally any of them could lead the Lions in receiving in the wide receiver depth chart. TJ Hawkinson's probably going to be the one that does it, though. And I don't love drafting them when I drafted DeAndre Swift also, but at the same time, we're in round 16 now, so there's really not a huge cost associated here. And we all know I'm going to take my guy Cordero Patterson as the last pick. Who are your dynasty sleepers? Yeah, I think that in dynasty, there's one big piece of advice. You see this team I drafted earlier, by the way, behind me on TikTok. There's one big piece of advice I have in dynasty leagues. My biggest piece of advice in dynasty leagues, guys, go get CeeDee Lamb. Go get CeeDee Lamb in startup drafts. Get CeeDee Lamb in the first 3 rounds of your draft. This guy is at the very beginning of his trajectory in the NFL. He's going to be a Calvin Ridley level player. So get CeeDee Lamb while you still can. But some sleepers overall, I think that my favorite sleeper is Elijah Moore. I don't know how much of a sleeper he is at this point in the dynasty community, but in the season-long league, like he could literally be. I expect him to be by the end of the season the number one wide receiver on the Jets, and I think he's just generally just being slept on. I also think a sleeper running back in dynasty is Damian Harris. I'm gonna draft. Let's take a look at running backs here. How high up is Darrell Williams on the ADP? Yeah, I'm going to go with Amari Rodgers first. Hopefully he's there with my next pick. Amari Rodgers could be the starting slot receiver for the Packers, and there's still a chance that Aaron Rodgers plays there. So in the 16th round, if Aaron Rodgers does return to Green Bay, Amari Rodgers' ADP is definitely going to go up. Adams or Hopkins this year? Right now, it's Hopkins. It has to be Hopkins. But once Aaron Rodgers is confirmed coming back to Green Bay, then it's Adams. Adams is the number 1 receiver for me with Aaron Rodgers. He's the number 5 receiver for me without Aaron Rodgers in fantasy. So I think that there's not a safer wide receiver in fantasy football right now than DeAndre Hopkins. I don't think there's a single safer wide receiver. Where are you taking Adams if Rodgers leaves? Yeah, I haven't drafted him almost at all because it almost just isn't worth the risk, and he's still getting picked as usually a top 3 wide receiver, and for whatever reason, in both the drafts we did tonight, it must have honestly been the same guy, because this seems very strange to me, but in both the drafts we did, look, he went first overall in this draft. I don't know why. I don't know what Ronnie's is doing, but he went first overall in this draft. Most of the drafts I've done, Devontae Adams is going still as a top 3 wide receiver, and I'm not willing to do that until I know Aaron Rodgers is playing, because I have him ranked number 5. I would prefer Tyreek Hill. I would prefer Stephon Diggs. I would prefer Calvin Ridley. And I would prefer DeAndre Hopkins over Devontae Adams until I know Aaron Rodgers is returning. So for that reason, I basically drafted him not at all. Because he's getting picked before most of those guys. He's getting picked before Stephon Diggs still in a lot of leagues. And in this draft, for whatever reason, in this draft, for whatever reason, he went first overall. Maybe this guy knows something we don't. Maybe I should change my Devontae Adams take. We have only a couple picks left. We all know who my last pick is, so that's not even a very eventful pick. We will see if Darrell Williams survives to me. If he doesn't, that would just be a microcosm of this entire draft. I got sniped a few times. I really feel like this team would have a lot more upside if I had Kareem Hunt in here instead of Myles Gaskin. But everything happens for a reason, guys. Everything happens for a reason. So we'll see if this team ends up winning me the $1 million prize. One of these teams is going to end up doing it. Would you rather pick earlier or later in the draft? I like the earlier picks, honestly, more. I think I've settled on the early picks. It'll be interesting to see how different the season-long leagues are to the best ball leagues. I've only done best ball leagues so far. I won't be doing season-long drafts probably for another 2 months. But so far in the best ball drafts, you're getting Clyde Edwards-Helaire, DeAndre Swift, Darren Waller, Michael Thomas, early in the 3rd round, and so I just think I prefer those picks in the 3rd round over what you're getting in the 3rd round in the back part of the draft, in 12-team leagues. All right, I got Darrell Williams. Let's go. He's, by the way, he's the number 2 running back for the best team in the NFL. He's also an injury away from winning leagues. To me, Darrell Williams is a pretty clear 0 running back target, especially when you're getting him basically in the last round. And so I do feel like there is some upside here with this running back group. There's certainly a lot of risk, which comes with the 0 running back approach. If we take a look at my receivers, I end up with Calvin Ridley, Chris Godwin, Brandon Cooks, Michael Pittman, Paris Campbell. I like that stack. John Brown, who I got most of these guys at a pretty good cost. Michael Pittman, 10 picks after his average draft position. Paris Campbell, almost 10 picks after. John Brown, a few picks after. Jameson Lee Crowder after. Amari Rodgers was a little bit of a reach. But I definitely stayed relatively within ADP, which is usually good to see. I got both quarterbacks at a good value. Do you draft kickers/defenses? No. In best ball, you do not. But in season-long leagues, I always draft a kicker and a defense with my last 2 picks. And I do not like having kickers and defenses in my leagues. I've been petitioning, I think, for at least 3 years in all of my important leagues to just remove both of them because especially kickers, both of them are annoying to me. And I understand if people disagree with this. I understand for a lot of people it's always been a part of the game and always will be a part of the game. But to me, every second I spend thinking about kickers and thinking about defenses, two of the most unpredictable things, and two of the things that like just aren't that exciting, is wasted time, in my opinion. So I don't love it. I don't love it. And kickers actually are actually one of the most predictable positions. I shouldn't say they're unpredictable. Defenses though are just all about matchups, and so I just always take one in the last round and then just switch the defense throughout the season. I never pretend like I know which defense is going to be great because the number one defense is almost always never the first defense picked in fantasy leagues. Like every year. No! Cordero Patterson gets snagged. 2 picks before me with my last pick. This team's not going to have the right vibes to win it. This team's just not going to end up having the right vibes to win it. It's all right. We're going to go with Quintez Cephas instead. Kind of surprised he's still there in the last round. 2 drafts in a row, I think. All right, guys, I appreciate everyone tuning in. That is a wrap for me. I will be back live on Sunday, around Sunday afternoon, Eastern Time. Thank you for tuning in, guys. I really do appreciate it. It has been fun, and we will be back at it soon. Have a good rest of your night, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube if you haven't yet. Really do appreciate you guys tuning in to the YouTube.